These are slides that are on the screen that you're supposed to look at.
Are we using Zoom now?
Or you could look up here, whichever you want.
But it is available on Zoom, correct?
Guys have a presentation up here on the screen that you should be looking at, please, so we can talk about it before we get started today. I know you're off on Python stuff. I'm going to drag you back. Old stuff. What is that?
It's the hierarchy chart of modules for Raster and other programs, I believe.
This is a flowcharting template. It's plastic. That's where the word template comes from, because it's a pattern, because it was plastic. So it's not something that originated with electronic devices. And you might see a template if you are working with somebody in a special field. We had a lot of people do really, really good on our last exam. The one question that people have a really hard time with is, what is a flowchart and what is a hierarchy chart? She said it. So I want you to be absolutely clear. Flowchart tells you the logic of the thing, how it flows. Hierarchy chart shows you what calls what and only has rectangles, has no other shapes on it. This, do you remember what we called this? We'll wait for it to go back then while you guys think about it. And I hear some words from people about what that is. Hierarchy does not show us logic. What is this? IPO. Alex got it. Maybe you guys be asking that. So I do expect you to remember these things, and that's why I put them up on the screen. An input processing output diagram, that last thing that we looked at, could be very, very, very valuable to you if you're trying to determine what a program is supposed to do or how to get started with it. Let's see, I heard something. Goodness, how did you guys do last time? Did you get tired of Code Academy, or did you love it? Is it okay? How is it? Good, good.
Code Academy's not bad.
Not bad.
I'm having trouble understanding.
Oh yeah, because it can kind of just picks certain things to show you. So that's why we've got that other one too. Yeah, the more tedious one, the older looking like a book one, just to kind of offset. Because Code Academy sometimes gets really, really particular on how to do this certain thing, but maybe doesn't show you how to put things together as much as we need to do. But it's great. And then the other site, the Runestone Academy, does a little bit, like I say, older of a job. It's not quite as glitzy, but it sort of shows you the complete package. Now, no matter what, we're doing things a little bit different than both of them, right? Because we started out with our very first Python program, our Hello World. We just said Hello World. But our real first Python program, we started out defining functions. Did you notice that? And if you look at Code Academy, you look at Runestone Academy, these early programs are just straight through code. They're not using functions. So that can be a little bit of something that you have to adjust to in your thinking. You know, this one isn't using any functions, so it's just going to execute sequentially in order. This one is using functions, so there may be some branching. for execution and then returning, which is perfect because we need to talk about if statements. And you guys have been reading in our book about if statements or selection structures. So let's see if we can bring some of this stuff together. Our chapter 4 stuff has been kind of spread out, to say the least. And we've looked at Python while we've done this. I know you guys saw, I'm sure you saw Dr. Ford's note on Friday that the Explore OTC thing was pretty tough on all of us. Last year, they had it on a Wednesday, and I thought that I was just the only one in major trouble. I woke up vomiting. You know, my delayed allergies to red meat and to mammal products make it where if I work with 1,000 teenagers like that in a day, I'm going to be sick 12 to 15 hours later. It's not going to be right away. So last year, I had to call in sick, and they did not find a sub for my class. So they had to cancel it. They were like, your class got canceled. So I was very sick, so I could not come in. I found out this year that 40 people called in that day. That's why they couldn't find a sub for my class. So this year, they moved it to Friday so that we would conveniently have Saturday to be sick and recover without needing subs. So you can imagine what I did Saturday, all day and all night. So your grading is not done, and it will not be done until I get a chance to get to it. And I can assure you that will be absolutely as soon as I can. But in the meantime, I have to continue working on getting things ready for new classes. I can't just say, stop you guys, wait for me to get everything graded, because I can't give you anything new, right? So sometimes the grading can pile up when we have big events like this. Now, I did have to spend every spare minute last week getting ready for it. My part, I had a small Python program that did an image glitch, and you guys will do that later in the semester where we'll scratch up an image kind of like a DJ does an album. So something like that I had all put together for last year, but last year we took big monitors, and this year we took little teeny ones with the Raspberry Pis. So I had to adjust everything down to run on little teeny monitors, which it didn't like. Yeah, it wasn't good for imaging, for image stuff at all with little teeny monitors, but it worked. And then I set up the virtual reality headset, and we've had a lot of trouble. The one I've got is from HP, and it's not like the top end model. And so it's had a lot of problems, and the IT people got a new one in, a replacement, just the week before last. And so I was finally able to get it all set up. And see, I think Thursday night before the showcase thing, I spent until about midnight or so downloading games from Steam so that there could be things available to use on the VR headset. And it did go over really good on Friday. Be happy to know that there was a constant crowd. I figured virtual reality is kind of old. None of the high school kids would really care about it that much, but apparently it's not that old. It is glitchy. Huh?
I saw something this morning that the next year, the next model of it, they're going to have gloves that track the points in your hand.
And you can see stuff. It's going to be super cool.
28 points around your hand.
Yeah.
Well, the HP one has like controllers that have little lights around it, so they're pretty cool controllers, but not as cool as gloves.
Balance doing enough controllers where you put your hands in and it reads how you're moving your hands. So it's like if you're actually grabbing for something, you actually have to move around like you're actually trying to grab it instead of it being like a button that when you press it, your finger just automatically.
You do something. Well, in a lot of these ones, you do have to bend down and move. So in the dining room, I got everything kind of moved out of the way. And there's one from Steam. I don't know if you've ever messed with virtual reality, but there's one called the Lab. And you just can go into all these different areas and do different things. And so my husband was doing it, and he went to reach down to grab something, and the chair was right there in front of him. And I was like, wait, there's the chair. And he took everything off, and he was like, okay, I'm done with that. I had no idea where I was. I was just going to slam into that chair.
That's the fun of VR.
I know it's fun, but it's also painful. So that's where I've been instead of getting her grades done, and I apologize because it's super important, and you hate for things like that to fall behind because, oh my gosh, it's really awful once they're behind to get them all done. Okay, so repetition statements. You had a question? Or did I answer it?
About your meat allergy, but I can ask you after.
Okay, good, good. It's fine either way. I don't mind talking about it. A lot of times it's better. I mean, I wasn't as violently ill as I was last year. I just had to sleep all day. So that's a lot better. This says chapter 5, and I think it's really 4 in our book. I have a typo there. These are if statements. I'm in the wrong place. Look at me. I'm like, oh, we should be here. We should be here. Not quite, almost. Try again. They're right together. And they kind of look alike because I did them together. That's better.
Have you ever had one of those days where you thought you had already taught a lesson, so you went on to the next one in class?
Oh, yeah. And I've had somewhere, I'm pretty sure I've done it twice, but I always figure they say it takes 6 times of hearing something for people to remember it. So if I do accidentally do it twice, a lot of people are like not sure. Do we already do it? I don't know. Usually nobody remembers too much. But especially in the 120 class, and especially if I have 2 or 3 of them. So you guys are good this semester. This is the only one. So it's not as easy to get mixed up. So selection statements. Why would they call if statements selection statements? When the textbook started doing this a few years ago, it just seemed like the dumbest thing to me. Why would they do that? Can you think of any reason? When I have an if statement, the code that's within my if statement body is going to be selected to run if that if statement is true. If that if statement is not true, my code body will not be selected to run. So I guess that's why they call them selection statements. It's like selecting code to execute or not execute. So before we can talk too much about if statements, and I know you guys have done a lot of reading about this, we have to be concerned with the condition. Our condition is something that in a flowchart is going to be in a decision diamond. And we always have some sort of condition if we have an if statement, because we're saying, is this condition true or is this condition false? And if the condition is true, we're going to do something. If it's false, we might do something else. We might just fall through and continue executing. So when we have a condition like that, our condition has to result in a true or a false. And we call that a Boolean value. You guys have seen those data types. You know that a Boolean can only be true or false. So when I'm creating a condition, I want to make sure it's going to result in a true or false answer. Now, to create my condition, I can use relational operators. And these operators are just what we've used in math since 3rd grade or whatever, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, is equal to, and is not equal to. Now, some languages use a little bit different of symbols for is equal to and is not equal to, but not very different. With is equal to, notice you have to have 2 equal signs. 1 equal sign sets a variable equal to something, assigns a value to a variable. We don't want to assign a value. We want to check to see if our variable is equal or the same as something else. So we have to use 2 equal signs. The not equal is usually an exclamation point, equal sign, or a bang, what we might call an exclamation point. But sometimes it might be a greater than, less than symbol, side by side, depending on our programming language. Now, when we're working with a test condition, think about it. It needs to have 2 sides. We're comparing something. So we have to have 2 things to compare to. Is A equal to B? When we have these 2 sides, we call them operands. Right? We have a left operand and a right operand. The operands could be variables. They could be literal strings. This would be a hard thing to compare to. This is a literal value in a string. That would be kind of annoying. Could just be a literal number like 42 You know, we could say if age equals 42, we could do something. Okay, so let's check some flowcharts here. Now with these flowcharts, this is an audience participation activity. So that means that if you are in the row number that we're working with, we need you to participate so that at the end we can kind of look around and see what we've done. Okay, so here we're going to test an equal condition. Every person, each one of you, is a separate execution of this program. So for each of you, I want you to think about the row number you're in. In our flowchart, we declare a row number variable, and we set it equal to 2. Now, what's your row number? If your row number is 2, we want you to stand up. So all our 2s, please stand up and let everybody see you. Are you guys are row 2? Come on, audience participation. Okay, everybody wave at them. Say thank you, you guys, for participating. Okay, so now what about the rest of you? Did you do anything when we processed that? Did we select any code to execute for row 1 and row 3? No. You guys are completely unaffected by this if statement. An if statement only affects the things that are part of the condition. So row 2 was affected. Now, for the rest of us, we would say thank you. That's what we told them, thank you. So let's look at this. Does the order of our operands matter? In our if statement, in that flowchart, and in that pseudocode, we said if row number equals 2, then do something. Would we have the same effect if it was if 2 equals our row number? Is that the same? It looks the same, doesn't it? Now, we might not like it this way, but we would have the same effect. Okay, so let's look at a less than operator. Now, here, we're going to assign a row number. Again, think about your row number. And our if statement says, if row number is less than 2, then please stand. So everybody that's true for, let's do it. Okay, so they're less than 2. Our second row didn't stand. Should you guys stand? No? You're good? Because you're not less than 2, right? So if this had said less than or equal to, then row 2 would stand. Thank you. Tell everybody thank you, you guys. So again, our row numbers that were not affected by that condition didn't have to do anything. We didn't ask them to do anything. Now let's think about that less than condition. We said if row number is less than 2, so we knew that we needed row number 1 or 0 if we had it. If we swapped those positions, so the operand order, and we said if 2 less than row number, would that be the same? No. So with our equal operator, the order of the operands doesn't matter. But when we're working with less than and greater than, we have to make sure we've got things in the right order, right? We can mess things up really easily. Okay, let's do a greater than. We hit that back row. Now in this one, we want to do an if statement, and our if statement says if row number is greater than 2, would you please stand? Now turn around and look at them because they all looked at you. Okay, third row, let's go. Stand up. Oh, look at them, it's so hard. I love it. Okay, say hey. Thank you guys. All right, they did it. Now, they were a row number that was greater than 2. Again, did the first row do anything? No. Did the second row do anything? No. An if statement only affects the things that are affected by the condition. So let's think about our pseudocode. I know you guys are writing Python code. You don't want to do pseudocode. I don't blame you, but it's still something we have to think about. So if you were relegated to do pseudocode and you had to include an if statement in your pseudocode, you would want these keywords, if, and then your condition, followed by the keyword then. So if this is true, then do this stuff. All of this stuff here is our if statement body. After our if statement body, we're going to have an end if statement to show that that's the end of the if statement body. With Python, Python is going to force us to indent everything under our if statement, all of the if statement body. But we need to do that same thing if we're writing pseudocode. We need to indent that stuff so that we can tell it's part of our if statement. Now for a flowchart, it's a little different. For a flowchart, we're going to be using the decision diamond. And in our decision diamond, we're going to have that condition. We might see that keyword if, we might not. Either way, it doesn't matter because we know that it's there because the condition is implying that it's an if. Now, when we do a decision diamond, we have to have a true and a false path coming out of it, or a yes and a no path, and they have to be labeled. If we don't put those, our flowchart loses all of its meaning, right? Because now it's just a guess, guessing what happens if that decision comes out true. One other thing when we're working with a flowchart like this, the direction of the arrows is really important, right? Because it shows us what path we're following. So we can't have arrows going up and down and all over the place. They matter. So our basic if statement is called a single alternative selection. It only performs the if statement body if the condition is true. So there's only one alternative. The if statement's true. If the if statement's true, we're going to select this code. If the if statement is not true, we're going to bypass that code and continue executing after the if statement body. Now, what about a dual alternative? A dual alternative means we have two options. We do that by adding an else statement. So with an else statement, we're saying everything that meets the condition of the if statement is going to select this code in the if statement body to execute. Everything that does not meet that condition is going to jump to the else and use the else code body. So it's not too bad. Let's try an else clause. Now this one will pick on some people that aren't everybody in a certain row. So this time we're looking for brown-haired people. We have this Boolean, brown hair. So with a Boolean, I don't have to have equals and less than because a Boolean is already true or false. So I can just say if this Boolean. So our Boolean here is brown hair. So if you have brown hair, you should have already assigned that brown hair Boolean a true. So everybody that has brown hair, if brown hair, stand up real quick. And you can just look at everybody. Stand up, stand up. You can decide if you have brown hair. Some classes, like everybody had brown hair. This class is a little bit more variety. Okay, look around. Yay. Now, did our people that didn't have brown hair have to do anything? No, just our brown-haired beauties. Thank you, guys. So our other people that didn't have to stand, according to the pseudocode, they had to do some thanking. So they needed to thank all of those people that were standing. That was their else condition. All right, we have some more though. What if we have many things we could do? So we might have an else if body like this to do with the weather. So what if we said, if it's sunny, and then our if statement body was, go to the pool, have a great time, do some fun things. We said, else if it's raining, then, let's find an umbrella, get all cozy, do whatever. Else if it's snowing, then let's start a fire, make some hot chocolate, do all those things. Else, what do we want to do if it's not sunny, raining, or snowing? Probably dark. I don't know, watch some TV, do something. But this else if clause is a multiple alternative. Single alternative if I just have an if statement. Dual alternative if I have an if statement with else. Multiple if I have if, else if, else if, else if. And I can just keep going. So let's do this one because I want everybody to see it and then we'll be done. So here again is your hair color, but this time we're not using a Boolean. We've got a code. So we're going to use a hair color code. So if you have brown hair, assign yourself code 1. If you have black hair, assign yourself code 2. And if you have another color, assign yourself code 3.
Other
Now-
color could be a mixture of all of black and brown, right?
Yep, it could. Anything that you decide is not black or brown. Okay, so if hair color equal 1, we want our brown haired people to stand up. Let's do that, brown haired people, if you wouldn't mind. Else, if our hair color is 2, this is our black haired people, we want you to turn left. Our black haired people, turn left. Come on, black haired people, we're gonna make you stand up and turn left. Turn left. Oh, they're pretty. Turn your chair left so we can tell you're dramatically turned. Our black haired people. Good job. Now our other hair colored people, turn right. Turn that chair just as tough as you can and turn it right. Okay, has everybody got something? Because we had multiple alternatives and we hit something that got everybody, right? So we didn't leave anybody out. But notice everybody is doing different things depending on what condition matched them. And this is what an if statement does. And thank you guys. Sit down. I'm going to give you all a hand. Very good, very good. Great class, great class. Now I know it's hard to do class participation, but I want you to really think about this as to why we wanted to look at it this way. Because the things that gets confusing to people when they're working with if statements is why the code does not execute their if statement body, why the code executes their if statement body, and why the code doesn't do their if statement and their else, both. I wanted to do both. Well, you can only do one for each execution. So I want you to think about it like that. We can only do one. If we had somebody that had half brown hair and half black hair, they would have to decide which one they wanted to go with. Okay, this flow chart is another type of multiple selection. Here I've got our if-else clause, like we just did. Looks a little different, but we said if hair color is 1, brown haired, please stand. Else if hair color is 2, black haired, please turn left. Else if hair color is 3, turn right. Our final else would be, what are you? Please select. So this flow chart shows those multiple options we had. But we could also use a select case statement. This is an area where I need you to pay special close attention. Why? We can't do a select case statement in Python. This is our programming language that we're using for our 120 class, but it's limited. It does so many other things for us, but it does not let us use a switch or select case statement. But you have to remember that these exist because there's a few test questions that say an option for a multiple alternative selection is a select case statement. And you need to remember, yes, that is an alternative. We just haven't used it in Python. That's a very hard thing. I know, it's a very hard thing. But this way, when you get to another language, you take C#1 or Java 1, you're like, I remember that. That was the one we couldn't use in Python. And we'll figure it out. Now, the select case statement looks just a little different for the value of our hair color because we would only be testing it once. What is the value of hair color? And then we would say, in the case it's 1, do this stuff. In case it's 2, do this stuff. In case it's 3, do this. So our select case is just going to collapse our if-else statement and make it a little more efficient. Does the exact same thing, just in a little bit more efficient way.
Does the default case automatically break then? In the case statement? Or do you have to write the break in the default?
You still have to break. Okay, complex. What if our if statement condition is not enough? We need to check 2 or 3 things. Well, we can combine if statement conditions using logical operators. Logical operators are and, or, and not. It's pretty logical. So if I want somebody that has brown hair in the middle row, I would say if hair color equals 1 and row number equals 2, right? That compound condition would give me a brown-haired person in that middle row. Now, if I wanted somebody that had brown hair or black hair, and I didn't care what row number they were in, I could make a condition that said if hair color equal 1 or hair color equal 2.
So how would you do it? I want hair color 1 and row number 2, but not at the same time.
We would have to have a multiple selection. So exactly, that's exactly what you would need to do.
And are we ever going to do if and only if statements?
Such as?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, but yeah. And then not just reverses things. So this last one, if not hair color equals 1, the brown hair people are not going to be included in that selection. Everybody else would be, right? So we would get the opposite.
We use not and not equal to.
We can use not and not equal to, and future programmers should be looking for you, hunting you down if you do stuff like that, and they will, because that's how bad it'll be. But anytime we do a double negative like that, we just make it so confusing for the world that it's really awful. So, but sometimes it's the right thing to do. So if I have a compound condition like that with an or an and, I need to do a lot of testing because I need to make sure that I test every condition. Now, sometimes in our class, when we write something together, I'll test a few conditions, you guys will test a few conditions, we'll be like, it's good. But that isn't what we would do if we were at work, right? Because if we were at work and we were on the job getting paid for this, we would make sure that every possible condition tested properly in our code. And it can be tedious, it definitely can. So that's why like the gaming companies have automated testing systems and things to do some of that for them. But we've got to figure it out. So here in this example, we have a variable x and a variable y. We're creating a truth table for these two variables. So if variable x is true and variable y is true, notice they're both Booleans, then the condition x or y would also be true, right? True, true, with an or condition, it's going to give me a true. Now, if I had x and y is a condition, x is true, y is true, so x and y will be true. If I have not x, that's going to reverse things, so that condition would be false. Now, if I continue on my truths table, if x is true and y is false, the or condition would still evaluate to true, but now the and condition would become false. Do you see why that is when you look at this truth table? So it can be kind of weird to look at, but we're saying if you're checking to see if either of these is true, that condition would be true because one of them is. But if you're checking to see if both of these are true, that condition would be false because y is false now. Same with the next row, where x becomes false and y becomes true. We would get a true or condition, but a false and condition. And then if they're both false, our or would be false, our and would be false, and the only thing that would be true is that the awful not that switches things around, makes everything the opposite. So what can we do with our if statements? All sorts of things, right? We know this is something that's really important for us. But a couple of things that they really bring out in our textbook is that we can all of a sudden now be a little bit more defensive in our programming. If we were going to do a division we could check to make sure that our divisor wasn't equal to 0. And if it was, we could say, hey, cannot do divide, divisor is 0. If we go ahead and do that division, we're going to have a runtime error. It's going to cancel. But if we add in an if statement for that, that's called defensive programming, we're avoiding that runtime error by checking that value. Now, we could also do the same thing if we were going to do a square root calculation. We could make sure that our user's not trying to get the square root of a negative number, because that would also cause a runtime error. If we had asked them to enter a number between 1 and 10, we could do an if statement to make sure that they actually entered a number in that range. So all of those things help us make sure that our program is working properly, that we don't have any errors from user input. Another thing that we could do pretty easily with an if statement or our selection structure is a menu-driven application. Now, these are getting kind of old. You might not have seen any. The last I heard, someone was telling me that Xbox had like a menu-driven interface a couple releases ago, but that's still been a while. But a menu-driven application is like where it comes up and says, 1 dash this option, 2 dash this option, 3 dash that option, you know, that kind of old school menu. We don't see those very often with graphical user interfaces because we just click on things. But since we're here working with character-based stuff in our beginning programs, because we haven't gotten to graphical stuff, we could create a menu application. And they have an example in your book, a lawnmower company application where they say, would you like to, you know, add a lawn or finish a lawn or whatever. Okay, so let's go look at page 217 in our book. See if I can find it. I gotta get logged on.
You said 217.
Uh-huh. Looks like I can still go to a page. We'll see if it works. For this, what they've got here for us on page 217, I'm going to back up just a little bit. This is a new car price calculator. And looking at this new car price calculator, we're going to get some practice with if statements. Now we're jumping into pretty advanced ones because you guys are pretty on top of things, and we don't want to spend a whole bunch of time doing real simple things, but there are some simpler ones. If this one confuses you, we can find some that aren't quite as big. This one's just big. So let's see what we've got here. I'd like to write this in Python after we're done, but we'll start with a Raptor flowchart. And this will be one of our last Raptor flowcharts that we do together. And you could use Raptor to get your thoughts together as you're designing a program, but we won't use it a lot ourselves in class. I just wanted you to have that tool available. So what is this program? We want to allow people to plan for their car purchase. We are your Universal Motors. So we compute the purchase price of a car by taking the base price, adding in all sorts of costs for different options, and then adding shipping and dealer charges. Now our shipping and dealer charges are fixed at $500 and $175 respectively, but the buyer can pick some other options, like the type of engine, the type of interior trim, and type of radio. The various choices for each option and the associated prices are listed here for us. Now they would like to have a program that inputs the base price of a vehicle and the desired options from the user, and then displays the selling price of that vehicle. So we have all these different options. We have 3 choices for engines, 3 choices for interior trim, 2 choices for our radio. I don't know if that's the right name for that device. And then all sorts of information for us from our textbook on getting started with this and the different modules we're going to have. So here's our hierarchy chart. In our Raptor flowchart, we're going to have a main module, and it's going to call a compute engine cost module. In that compute engine cost module, we're going to ask the user, do you want a V8 or diesel or whatever the engine choice is. Then we're going to do the compute interior trim costs, where we'll ask them if they want leather or vinyl, whatever. And then we'll do our compute radio cost. And finally, based on all that information, we'll display our final price as output. So let's open Raptor and let's look at what we use for if statements. I'm just going to drag it onto this flow chart, a selection structure. Now, when you drag it onto your flow chart, you should see right away it's got the decision diamond, and it has yes and no paths. Now, we can't really change those yes and no paths, you know, where they are. So we have to deal with it the way they've got it. Let's double click on that decision diamond, and it only has one box. And what Raptor wants here is just the condition. So we do not want the word if. We just want the condition part of the if statement. So it actually is kind of good for us because it really focuses on that condition. So I'm going to close this and delete this if statement structure because I want to start out the way they want us to. Let's go ahead and save this flowchart because you know they're going to make us. Oh, make sure it's selected and then press your delete key. So if it's blue, it should let you. Is it letting you? Everybody's fighting off all these things. Okay, so I'm going to make this be chapter 4, car price program Raptor. And in our main, we're going to start by declaring all sorts of variables. So let me get there.
Zoom on, right?
Uh-huh.
Are we able to access that Zoom right now?
See where they are. They've got me down here. We've already done so many of these things they're showing us in Raptor. I've got to go a little bit. Oh, look at this. Where am I? If I can find a page number here. Page 226. Let's do this real small Raptor flowchart as practice. This one is important because if you guys remember in that first unit exam, we had a lot of questions about calculating that overtime. And this little flowchart does that kind of the way the book wants. So it'll show us how those if statements work and take care of that. So let's do this one real quick. I'm going to do file save as. And this one is going to be chapter 4, overtime pay calculation. And then we'll reopen that other empty one.
What was it named?
Chapter for overtime pay calculation, calc. So let's declare our variables. I'm going to use the assignment statement. And the first one is going to be pay rate. Nope. And we want our pay rate to be 0. Next, we want to declare a variable named hours. And our hours will also be numeric. So we want to start it at 0. Then overtime hours. We want to be 0. Overtime pay. Should also be 0. And finally, total pay. So altogether, we should have 5. Let's put a comment here on our start. I'm going to right-click and choose comment. And I want to put some really important things here. Overtime pay calculation. Put your name, and then let's put our date. Do what?
I can't place a comment, it's just grayed out.
Oh, make sure you're clicked on your start. It's just not going to let you.
I can like double click it, and then whenever I right click, it just clicks off.
It's gonna be very picky.
So not the greatest comment, but at least now we've got something. When you open it, you can be sure what it is. So let's create a nice welcome message. Would I want to use an input symbol or an output symbol for a nice welcome message? Output. Let's try it. So let's say something like, they have this program will calculate a weekly paycheck for an employee, comma, including overtime if applicable. And then I'm going to have a period and close those double quotes. Now we need to prompt our user, and we need input. We need to know what the pay rate is and how many hours they worked this week. So let's use input symbols. So for our first input symbol, we want something like, what is the employee's hourly pay rate? What variable do we want to put that in? Pay rate.
What do you have to pay this person?
And definitely make it shorter. You don't have to have all those words. Sometimes our class is too much typing. Okay, after you've got the pay rate, we need to get their hours. So let's do another input. And this time we want to say, how many hours did the employee work this week? And we want that to go into which variable? Hours. Okay, so now we've initialized our variables. We've prompted for input. Now, the way our pay calculation works for our company is we only give people overtime if they've worked more than 40 hours and they make less than $10 an hour. Now, if they make more than $10 an hour, we don't give them overtime. So we're ready to use our selection symbol. So let's drag that onto our flow chart right at the end. So let's put in our condition. Our condition is going to be if the pay rate is less than 10 and the hours is greater than 40. Let me see, I'm going to press done and see if it's bigger. Yeah, not too bad, and it looks just the same. Now, this is a compound condition. Notice that we have an and keyword. So we're already using kind of an advanced condition, right? We have two parts to this condition. The pay rate has to be less than 10, and their hours have to be greater than 40. And I'd like to do the no path first. So if our answer to this conditional evaluation is no, let's put an assignment box over there on the no path. So for this one, we're going to set total pay to our hours worked times our pay rate. So just a simple calculation, like a normal payroll calculation type thing. But now if they do get overtime, we've got a little bit more work to do. So let's put an assignment box on that yes path. So in the yes path, let's calculate overtime hours. And we want it to be equal to the hours they worked minus 40, because we know they worked more than 40 because we had that in our if statement. So we're going to subtract 40 from that to know how many hours of overtime they worked. Now, usually when you get overtime, you get time and a half.
Oh, okay. I thought no overtime pay would be basically free labor.
No, you get time and a half or double time, right? So let's calculate it. Ours is time and a half. So we're going to calculate our overtime pay amount. So that's going to be our overtime hours times 1.5 times our pay rate. Do we need any parentheses in that calculation?
Yeah.
Where would you like them?
It would be overtime hours and 1.5 would be in parentheses together. So
Well, that's what's going to happen first anyways.
It's correct.
Yeah, it's time and a half, so it really should go around the 1.5 times your pay rate, but it's going to come out fine either way, whether we have those or not, but it would be clearer if we have them in. So We'll put those in. Okay, and one last thing then, we got to calculate their total pay. So one more box, and our total pay, we're going to use the value 40 times our normal pay rate plus that overtime pay that we just calculated. Now we need to output our answer. And to output our answer, we don't want to be on the yes side or the no side of this conditional, because we want to output the answer no matter what. So we want to end our if statement, basically. So that means that the next symbol we put on our flowchart needs to come down here at this little tail right before the end. But before we do that, let me show you something. See this box up here beside this decision diamond? If you click it, that will roll up all of that code under your decision diamond. To make it a little easier to look at, you can click again to roll it back out. So just so you don't think it's disappeared. Okay, so we're ready to output. So I need an output statement, and I want it right down here because it's after the if statement. So let's say our message is going to be the pay for this employee for this week is, and then they want us to include a $sign in our string, and then we're going to concatenate total pay.
You're forgetting the space in between the $sign and the.
I don't want a $sign between that. Thank you, though.
You don't want a space. That
Nope, we never have a $sign usually between a number. We'll probably end up with one depending on what that number is. But we usually have our $sign right up against our numbers. So let's say done. She's on it. Okay, are we ready? You want to run it? Mine right now I have set on super slow, which is really good. That's what we want to do this first time. So they've got a bunch of test cases for us. I'm going to run this first. It goes to my start, allocates my variables, outputs my message, and then it asks me for the employee's hourly pay rate. For this first one, try $5 an hour. They must be like a waitress. How many hours did they work? 45. So this person should get some overtime, right? See if our answer is correct. Yep, so that's what they say we should get in the book. 237, 5,000. Got a bunch of numbers there. We could generate code. We could generate Ada code. We can't generate Python. In our textbook, it tells you how to fix this problem with the number of decimal places being shown. So we can set our precision level to a certain number of decimal places. Now let's test again, and I want you to watch that if statement. For this one, we want to put in 45 hours and $10 an hour. So 10 and 45. Now I want to watch before I click OK and see how my code path follows the decision. since this employee makes $10 an hour, I should go down the no path, right? So when I click OK, we should be able to watch it and see that it goes down the no path and finishes properly. And it's got $450 like they were expecting. So everything looks good. Questions? Everybody's all working? Good if statement. Should we put it in Python before we do that car price calculator? Let's do it. Okay, so what's that editor thing that I use for Python? Idle? So I just type it here? Some Python stuff? New file, thank you. So I'm gonna do file, new file. And I'm gonna do some comments. We've been doing a # as comments, but we can also do 3 tick marks, single quotes. Now, the first time I did the tick marks to the left of the number 1. And if you notice, those did not turn green. Idle did not like those. But my 3 quotes that are right beside the enter key did turn green. So let's try this type of comment. This is a block comment in Python. So we'll say that this script is going to be overtime pay calc. You are our developer. Crazy. And I'm going to put today. And then to close that comment block, I just do 3 quotes again. So I would like them to be at the beginning of the line like the others, but as you can tell, it doesn't matter. So that's just a block comment in Python. And we saw that the single line comments use the # or hashtag symbol, but our block comment uses the 3 tick marks or 3 single quotes. So in this program, in our Raptor implementation, if you notice, we didn't have any modules, right? So this one is going to be kind of messy. No modules. I'm going to put that in a comment. No modules in this program because it's going to look a little different than the ones that have modules, right? But we can handle either way. So if I look at our flowchart, I just want to kind of write it from looking at our flowchart. The variables that we had, first of all, we had pay rate and hours. And if you can notice, I am starting these variable names with lowercase letters, unlike what we did in Raptor, because in Python, people usually use lowercase variable names. Now, these are lower camel case because I am putting an uppercase letter when I start each new word. Overtime pay. And finally, total pay. We should have 5, right? Yep, 5 variables. So let's write out our nice little message. I'm going to copy it. Oh, it's not worth it. Raptor has it trapped. So I'll just type it. Yeah, I can go in there. Maybe. Okay, so my print statement is going to print out that welcome.
I do have a question. Why won't idle let us scroll?
It's just not a very friendly editor, is it? You can sort of scroll if you press enter a bunch and put in some blank lines. But that's about the only way. Because I'll have to do that sometimes to keep things in the middle of the screen for you guys to see them. Okay, so we've got our beautiful message. I'm going to move mine off the screen just a little bit. How about I'll move my Raptor out of the way. Raptor won't go anywhere. I had it stuck. Finally, okay. Now we printed our welcome message and we want a prompt for the hourly pay rate. If I remember right, we put our variable name first, pay rate equals our input command, and in our input command we're going to put our prompt. What is the employee's hourly pay rate? Whenever we do an input, what data type are we going to get by default?
String.
String. Do we want this to be a string?
Yes.
No, we don't, do we? So what should we switch it to?
Integer.
Well, we want some decimal places, don't we?
Well, the thing is, I think we did,
Does it say integer?
we did do 0.01.
Did we do just zeros? Okay, well, we'll make it an int then, because that's fine. So we're casting it as an integer so that we can use that in some math. Now, how many hours did they work is our next prompt. So we're going to put that, save that in our hours variable. Again, we want it to be an integer. And we're going to input how many hours did the employee work this week. Now, we need an if statement, and we haven't done an if statement in Python before, but it's not too bad. We start out with the keyword if, so we can handle that. And then after the keyword if, we have our condition. Well, our condition is if our pay rate is less than 10, and I'm just going to put and. Does Python understand that? The other half is we want hours greater than 40. So let's go to Google, and you guys tell me, can I use and as a logical operator in an if statement? What do we have to use? What does Python like? Now, we want to be sure to search for logical operators. That's why I kept saying those terms, because it's a lot easier to find things if we're using the right terms. Looks like it's okay. It says Python likes and, or, not, not. So even though it's case sensitive, we can do uppercase or lowercase. So whichever you would prefer. I'm going to leave mine uppercase. Do what? Do you want to show us?
I do have a question. Why doesn't our book have a table of logical operators?
It does. Are you going to show us?
I just redid it, it's fine, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Just being a jerk. Let's open Word because we need to put some stuff into our quick reference because we got an if statement here. Now, I'm to the end of my table, and I know some of you are in the Word class, so if you click right there at the end of that last row and press Enter, it'll just add a new row to your table. So now we can use that keyword if, and I'm going to say if condition colon. So that means I need a colon at the end of my if statement. We'll come back to that and put some more in it. Now in Python, whenever I type that colon, Python knows everything within that if statement body needs to be indented. So I'm following that yes path. So I'm ready to calculate our overtime hours. It equals hours minus 40. Overtime pay equals overtime hours times 1.5 times pay rate. And the last thing, our total pay equals 40 times our pay rate plus that overtime pay that we just calculated. I'm going to leave that there for a second, make sure that everybody can get it.
Have you ever received a program submitted, like this submitted, and it had so many typos that it was insane?
Yeah, some. Usually those people drop pretty quick. Might not be their area. We want them to be happy someplace else. Okay, so I've got everything good here. I need this to be a dual alternative. Right now I've got this single alternative. If they get overtime, this is our calculation. But what if they didn't? I need an else clause. And that's all I need is the keyword else followed by the colon. That's my else clause. So if we did not qualify for overtime, we're going to say their total pay is their hours times their pay rate. So when you look at your Python code, it's kind of like looking at that Raptor flowchart. We've got all of these 3 lines of code are our if statement body. They executed our if statement is true. This 1 line of code down here is our else statement body because it executes if our if statement is not true. And now we're ready to output our final result. So I need to backspace to not be indented because I don't want this output to be part of my else clause. So I'm going to print the pay for this, something's in my way, week is $, plus total pay. Good. I need to cast that as a string so the print statement doesn't get upset about printing a number. Oops, I have how many hours, not hours. with an H. It sounds exactly the same when I said it. Okay, let's save this thing because it's going to make us anyways. So I'm going to save. This will be me find it. Find my spot. Where do I have it? Yeah, I have too many 120 folders because they were moving things. Okay, so this one we're going to say is chapter 4, overtime pay calc Python. Now we can run it. So we should be able to use the same test data as we did for our flowchart.
How does it be all lower?
Lied to me.
Yeah, I don't want to accept it. You need to have it turn on.
Yeah, I like the orange is much better, huh? I'll save that. And run it.
Well, it makes you save every time you try to run it.
Yeah, no matter what. Okay, so here's my welcome message in my first prompt. What is the employee's hourly pay rate? See, I think we said that poor person made $5 an hour and they worked 45. Oh, I'm missing a space there on that one. And a question mark, not very consistent. I'll fix that. The pay for this week is $237.5. So notice we have a different level of precision than Raptor because it was showing us all sorts of zeros after that. So let me fix those couple of things. How many hours did the employee work this week? I want to end that with a question mark and a space. I'll run it again. $5, 45 hours, $237.50. So that looks good. Now, do you remember where that visualize site is? I'm going to copy my code. I'm going to go find that site. Visualize Python. It's that pythontutor.com.
English is so weird.
Look, there's a new one. SI Sense that's going to cost money. Stay away from it. Okay, I want Python 3.6. I'm going to paste my code. Now, this code is going to be easier for us to understand than the one we did last week. That's why I want to take this program to this website. I don't want to make you jump around forever and ever, although as software developers, you need to get used to it. But I do want to look at this with a program that should be easier to follow and understand. Look, and here's all these users that need help with Python. If you guys want to feel good, you can get on here and help these people with their print statements. Except some of them might be doing really intense things. But that's how this site works. Okay, so I want to visualize execution. Now, I'm sitting here at the end of my comment block, ready to begin execution of my program. So I'm going to click forward. We should see all of our variables get allocated. We see them getting allocated over here in memory and what their initial values are. There they all are. Now I should be executing. I'm ready to execute my print statement. When I click forward, I should see that output. There's my print statement output. If I click forward again, I should make a calculation or ask for our pay rate. Now, because it's an input statement, my forward button is grayed out and it's asking me to enter that input below. So I'll put 5 for the $5. Now we're at our next input statement. You can see our pay rate got updated appropriately to 5. And the prompt is saying, how many hours did the employee work? So I'll put in our 45. And now we see their pay rate is 5. They worked 45 hours. We're right to our if statement. So if I click forward, we'll see if our if statement evaluates to true or not. It evaluated to true because we're executing the if statement body. And we see our overtime hours get updated, our overtime pay, finally our total pay, and finally we're to the last line of code where we're ready to print things out. All right. Questions? Guys got it? Okay, good. So this is a good one for us because you guys see how flexible Python is. You don't have to have the different modules that we've been using. We've been using those for consistency to make you think about modular programming and to think about how you want to keep all those things together. How is everybody doing that? I'm going to check to see, do we need lab time or should we keep going?
We're gonna put any of this that you've done on the modules or online. So are we done with the in-class stuff we just did?
I'm just looking to see.
I wouldn't mind some lab time.
I'm checking to see if you guys need it or not. Because we can keep going and we can stop either way. So the one I'm concerned about, your Python first program is due tonight. Let's take a look at it. We have a lot of people that have turned it in, but a lot that haven't. Now this program is going to be much simpler than what we just did because here's the pseudocode. You're going to prompt, please enter your name, and then you're going to print out the message hello with their name.
So
And that's in Python.
you want us to submit pseudocode and the Python
This
code?
is pseudocode, so you've already got it.
Okay, so we
Just your Python code. What am I going to count off if you don't have? Comments. Now, a lot of the other teachers disagree with me, and they think I should give you guys zeros if you don't have comments at all. I feel like you still did a lot of coding and a lot of work if you forgot comments. But don't force me into that giving people zeros thing by not using comments. Because if we start getting into bad habits of not having them, I'll have to start zero. And I have students sometimes in like C# that have worked for 10 or 15 hours on a program. I really don't want to give them a zero because it doesn't have comments. So let's just get into a good habit. So that one's due. Your Code Academy units 1 and 2 are due. Shirley had trouble because that pro license thing expired because she'd been in it for longer than what we had done. So don't worry if that expires, just kind of click on past it. You should be able to do everything. And then the other one is your Runestone Academy. So let's do tonight. Okay, lab time is just about 25 minutes. Should be plenty of time to get this program done and turned in. Let me know if you need help with that. Did it go missing on you?